Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I wish to welcome all of you who are joining us today from different time zones. I'm Sayako Tokusue, Corporate Communications Officer at Sasakawa Africa Association. I will be facilitating much of the event today. Again, welcome to the official side event for the FAO Science and Innovation Forum hosted by SAA, IFPRI, and AFAAS, entitled Multidimensional Agricultural Extension to Support Innovation. Experiences and lessons on building African farmers' resilience to global crisis. Let me make a few housekeeping announcements before we start. During the event, you may submit your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Those questions will be answered during the event by the speakers and also towards the end of the program at Q&A session. For those questions that are not answered during the event due to time limitation, we will try to get responses from our speakers after the event and put them on our website at a later date. The whole event will be recorded and archived later on. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Makoto Kitanaka, who is the president of the Sasakawa Africa Association, to deliver his opening remarks. Please proceed, Dr. Kitanaka.
Thank you. Good evening from Tokyo, Japan. I'm very pleased today to welcome all of you to our official side event for FAO Science and Innovation Forum in collaboration with AFAAS, African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, and IFPRI, entitled Multidimensional Agriculture Extension to Support Innovation, Experiences and Lessons on Building African Farmers' Resilience to Global Crises. Sasakawa Africa Association is an international NGO founded in 1986 with the support of the Nippon Foundation to strengthen food security in Africa in response to the devastating famine that struck East Africa. Dr. Norman Borlaug, one of our founders and the only agronomist who won the Nobel Peace Prize, decided to focus on enhancing agriculture extension systems by building capacity of extension agents to deliver simple agricultural technologies such as improved varieties and fertilizer to smallholder farmers in rural villages in Africa. Dr. Borlaug was well aware that technologies and adoption are equally important and that the two have to go hand in hand to make a difference in people's life. Obviously, no matter how good technology may be, to truly solve the problem faced by the rural communities, its benefits and the cost must be fully understood by the farmers, and the farmers themselves must decide that they want to use. For technology to be accepted and to serve people, its usability, accessibility, and the cost effectiveness must be clearly demonstrated from farmers' perspectives. In the 1990s, SAA successfully disseminated improved agriculture technologies and practices among rural communities in Ethiopia by establishing demonstrations plot within farmers' field that clearly conventional farmers' method, and by training extension agents and the farmer in the approach. This approach was adopted by then Prime Minister Meles Zenawi and became the cornerstone of current Ethiopian's agricultural extension system. Well, when we talk about agriculture extension, many of you may be thinking of a conventional public extension system that relies on public extension agents, as in Ethiopia. In fact, Ethiopia is one of the few cases where public extension systems are effectively used for technology dissemination. However, nowadays, agriculture extension is becoming more diverse and dynamic. In today's forum, we'd like to update your image of agriculture extension. For example, in Uganda, where there are few public extension agents, we have developed the village agent model in which leader farmers are trained as an agent to carry out various activities along the agricultural value chain for their communities, including marketing. And this model has been adopted by Uganda's National Agricultural Extension Policy and is being scaled up nationwide. The One-Stop Center Association, or OSCA, is another interesting farmer-to-farmer extension model in Uganda, which has lots of potential to complement conventional public extension system. And today, I'm glad that Mr. Godfrey Mayambala, who is the center manager of one of the most successful OSCA, is going to share his lively experiences with you. I'm sure you will be fascinated by his story. Nowadays, smallholder farmers in Africa are directly affected by global issues such as climate change, soil degradation, COVID-19 pandemics, and critical price increase of fertilizer, food, and fuel. In today's complicated world, no single organization can address these issues at a time, covering everything from technology development to dissemination. That is why we believe in the importance of building multidimensional agricultural extension system and partnerships. SAA has recently concluded official partnership with today's co-organizers IFPRI and AFAAS to discuss what we could contribute to build more effective agriculture extension system in Africa and how such effort can be scaled up. We are also pleased to have a country director of Harvest Plus today. SAA and Harvest Plus are working together to promote biofortified crops in Africa, which have great potentials to improve nutrition in rural communities. We are also working on existing projects using AI technologies with SoftBank, which is one of the biggest telecommunications companies in Japan. We are delighted to have the opportunity to hear about their technology today. A case study from Nigeria would be the latest and unique example to improve fertilizer efficiency at a time when high fertilizer prices are affecting a great number of farmers. There was a time when agriculture extension advisory services were considered inefficient and obsolete, and its national budget were drastically cut. Today, however, the role of agricultural extension and advisory services are revisited as a cost-effective tool that can bridge innovation to farmers by many national governments and international organizations, such as the FAO. I hope that we can take these opportunities to work together with you to promote new initiatives to enhance extension services. I hope that today's forum will serve as an opportunity to discover and renew your awareness of the importance of agriculture extension and the potential of the multidimensional agricultural extensions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Dr. Kitanaka, that sets the context and the objective of today's event, which is to update the conventional image of agricultural extension system in Africa that disseminates technologies and innovations to smallholder farmers. We are now honored to invite Dr. Selvaraju Ramasamy to give us keynote address. Dr. Ramasamy is currently Senior Agriculture Officer at the Office of Innovation at FAO He leads FAO's technical support for strengthening agriculture innovation systems and coordinates partnership with national agricultural research systems and extension and advisory services and their regional networks. Dr. Ramasamy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. Dear participants and panelists, colleagues from across the world, it is my pleasure to speak at this important side event on multi-dimensional agricultural extension to support innovation. Of course, we have lots of experiences and lessons learned from decades of work in supporting national agricultural extension and advisory services, especially in Africa, of course, in many countries and different regions of the world. The world is facing unprecedented challenges due to growing world population, depleting natural resources, and the impacts of climate change, just to name few of these challenges. To add to this, the COVID-19 pandemic and the conflicts have further aggravated the impacts on food security and livelihood of the farmers throughout the world, especially in Africa. The challenges to ending hunger, food insecurity, and all forms of malnutrition keep growing. The most recent evidence available suggests that between 702 and 828 million people were affected by hunger in 2021. The number has grown by almost 150 million since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. 103 million more people between 2019 and 2020, and 46 million more in 2021. The smallholder farmers are severely affected, while they are the backbone of the agricultural sector, producing the great share of the global food supply. Achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals depends heavily on their capacity to produce enough food to feed the growing population and also to themselves and their families. The lack of access to basic services such as inputs, credit, advice, education, and training still is an issue for the smallholder farmers. They are also particularly vulnerable to shocks such as erratic weather events and the climatic phenomena, volatile prices, and pest and disease outbreaks. Hence, the relevance of multi-dimensional support from extension and advisory services is much bigger than ever before. However, today, extension and advisory services struggle to support farmers in all their needs. Extension and advisory services traditionally focused on the technology transfer to support production, although oftentimes they would not take into account obstacles that farmers face in adoption of these new technologies, such as poor access to inputs and also to credit. Laboratory-based solutions and technologies are often poorly adapted to real-life conditions on the ground by the farmers. Today, it is clear that extension and advisory services need to move away from the narrow narrative of focusing on productivity and profitability only, and become innovative to support farmers in 360 degrees. They should address post-harvest activities, work along the agricultural value chains to strengthen farmers' integration into those. They should promote climate resilient practices to help adapt and mitigate climate change effects, including weather information, extremes, etc. And there is an opportunity to make use of the digital tools and services. EAS needs also to engage youth and women and other vulnerable groups in a spirit of leaving no one behind. Extension should also address other issues such as nutrition, health, and gender equality. EAS is well placed and it should be seen as a facilitator of the connection among agri-food system actors to foster collaborative processes and unleash agricultural innovation. Innovative extension models are reshaped, and the transformation is critical to increase farmers' resilience to shocks and sustainably improve their livelihoods. But the EAS is not yet prepared for these multiple new roles and tasks. Over the recent decades, we could see decreasing public investments in extension, leaving public sector with little or no operational funds and inadequate human resources and lack of motivation to assume new roles. On a positive side, we can also see that EAS, Extension Advisory Services, are provided by a multiplicity of providers such as non-governmental organizations, producer organizations, private sector, and also opportunities offered by ICTs and many others. This pluralism is key to improve service provision and coverage of extension, both in terms of clients and teams. There are many successful examples of non-public EAS sectors providing multidimensional services to farmers. And we have a farmer field school across the Africa, which not only disseminate good agricultural practices through participatory and experiential methods, but also help farmers organized, empower themselves to articulate their demands and get together to solve common issues and achieve common goals. Another example that we recently implemented in Africa in some countries is science technology backyards, which connects farmers to research institutions. In this case, agricultural professors and students live on the farm and ensure direct and timely access for farmers to agricultural advice, involving them in experimentation and co-creation of knowledge. There are many such examples. Farmer knowledge centers, innovation hubs, and innovation platforms are some examples promoting multi-actor facilitation mechanism to increase the access and availability of extension and advisory services. Digital tools provides enormous opportunity to reach out to the most vulnerable agri-food system actors, provided the risks associated with the inequality are addressed upfront. Private sector is also engaged in provision of multi-dimensional extension and advisory services, including processing of horticultural products, training and technical support to farmers, e-commerce platforms to connect producers and consumers, hiring of extension services or extension agents by the cooperatives and farmers organizations, etc. They're also engaged in ensuring that quality of inputs handling, processing, and transport are available to the stakeholders, while also ensuring the guaranteed price and market. In all these, strengthening research and extension farmers linkages is the key to ensure seamless availability and access of knowledge and information by the farmers. We promote agricultural innovation system as an approach to ensure multi-actor engagement mechanism, working together to create knowledge and apply them in the field iteratively. These initiatives, although numerous and positive, remain often scattered and uncoordinated, hindering the overall impact of extension and advisory services. Against this context, EAS system need to come through a profound transformation and change to become innovative, relevant, effectively respond to arising needs, take on new roles, and work hand in hand with farmers to improve their livelihoods, food security, and resilience. Investment in EAS is the key to make all innovative EAS methods approaches meaningful and relevant to agri-food system actors. This transformation should start at all levels, mutually reinforcing each other, policy, institutions, people. Science and innovation underpins all these levels to enhance the effectiveness of the operations. Effective agricultural and extension policies and strategies should articulate different roles of EAS actors, taking into consideration the emerging roles and responsibilities, provide incentives for pluralistic engagement, and ensure a coordination of the EAS system at all levels. International organizations, regional research and extension organizations can play a meaningful role by providing technical support to these institutions. Effective implementation of multi-dimensional agricultural extension needs enhanced capacities of EAS actors, especially the public extension, starting with the financial and human resource capacities. Public sector has a lead and coordination role, and at the same time, inclusivity and quality standards of advice provided by multiple organizations should be maintained. Extension services should also acquire new technical skills, such as those related to climate resilient and nature positive practices and application of digital tools and EAS, in addition to promoting efficiency in input use. They should also invest in functional capacities such as those related to facilitation, networking, and knowledge sharing, and how to navigate the complex institutional landscape at the country level. Multidimensional extension and advisory services are key to support African farmers in achieving food security, better livelihoods, and resilience. We need a new narrative, the extension and advisory services, that is needed now. Their importance and relevance should not be underestimated. EAS is the only vehicle to carry all our knowledge to producers and other agri-food system actors, not just the public sector extension services. And there are pluralistic actors, they address this very important issue. They are the one present at the local level. Key question is whether the new narrative provides necessary ingredients for EAS and succeed in supporting agri-food system actors for a better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life to all, leaving no one behind, is the question. This depends on the enabling environment, which can unleash a positive change at the system level, nurture promising initiatives, and invest in the capacities of service providers. The change is underway. We see many positive examples, but a systematic transformation is critical at this juncture to improve service provision and tackle arising challenges and crises. FAO, together with several partners, we are providing technical support to strengthen the multidimensional and pluralistic agricultural extension and advisory services to support innovation. This is not enough. More investment in EAS and commitment at all levels are the key to the much needed transformation of EAS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramasamy, for sharing the FAO's perspectives on the importance of and potential of innovative, holistic, and inclusive agricultural extension system to address these issues. It is very encouraging to hear FAO's commitment and initiatives in leading these areas, coordinating various actors through partnerships to bring transformation in current agricultural extension system. Now, we'd like to invite Dr. Christine Davis to present status and future of extension in Africa. Dr. Davis is a senior research fellow at IFPRI and is an extension and education expert. She has done and led extensive research on agricultural extension systems in Africa and worldwide, highlighting the importance of multidimensional extension system, which is one of the key themes of today's event. So Dr. Davis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to swap my slides here. Yeah, it's not going to work. So
maybe Dr. Davis, we can control your slide from here.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just a moment, please.
All right. Good day to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to be talking about the status of extension and advisory services in Africa and take a brief look at the future. So thanks a lot for sharing my slides for me. I'll just get started by highlighting the key messages that I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how extension services are critical to supporting rural producers and also other actors in the rural spaces in Africa, not just agricultural producers, especially to deal with risk and with change. You can move on to the next slide. When we look at the status of extension today, as I'll do very briefly, we need to ask the question, are extension services in Africa properly equipped to support smallholders for resilience, for innovation, for dealing with risk and change? Is there a need for an upgrade? Finally, I'll look at the future of extension services in Africa, services that are farmer-led, digitally enabled, innovative, and professional. On the next slide, the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, are the most commonly agreed upon future that we want to see. But the SDGs are threatened by many challenges today, and African smallholders in particular continue to adapt and to innovate to meet these challenges, to face these challenges. We've been talking about some of them, the low productivity, soil degradation, limited market access, climate change. And the global challenges continue to rise with the COVID-19 pandemic, the major price increases due to the conflict in the Ukraine. But through inclusive decision-making, knowledge sharing, providing skills, providing technologies through agricultural extension, farmers in Africa can innovate for food, for nutrition, for income security, and be more resilient to shocks and to risks. Next slide. This little diagram here shows us how extension can help us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. On the right-hand side, we see these outcomes and impacts that we all want to achieve. More knowledge, better attitudes toward adoption and taking up innovations, behavior changes, more productivity and empowerment among smallholder farmers. Extension and advisory services can bring about these positive and these sustainable impacts and outcomes through the characteristics that we see on the left-hand side, the governance, the structure, the financing, the capacities, the tools that are used by staff. So we see these characteristics affecting extension performance, how timely is it, the access, the quality, and in turn, addressing the outcomes and the impacts in the long run. Next slide, please. So the snapshot I want to share with you today is about what do extension and advisory services look like in Africa. Looking at governance first, one of the first characteristics. We have a lot of decentralization happening in many countries. We have increasing roles of the private sector and roles of the farmers themselves through village agents as lead farmers and so forth. We also see more of a focus on coordination, as Dr. Ramasamy mentioned, on the public sector side, the need for coordination, regulation, and also public goods provision. Extension today also has a wider audience. So there's greater focus on youth, for instance, on marginalized social groups, women, and supporting entrepreneurs in rural areas. And while we see classic and important methods of extension continuing, like farmer field schools, field days, demonstration, There's also increasing use of digital technologies and digital tools, smartphones, apps, and so forth, which can provide for a wider reach, reduced costs of outreach, and greater knowledge sharing. But we do need to be careful that some groups are not left out through the use of digital tools. The other snapshot we see is this increase in professionalism in countries like South Africa, Uganda, Malawi. We're trying to introduce certification and regulation of extension and advisory services from all different sectors so that there's minimum standards introduced for what an extension staff is and can be, and also continuing education for the staff so that they can continuously upgrade their skills. And then finally, extension has a wider repertoire of topics going beyond crops and animals, natural resources to things like climate change, nutrition, business, and entrepreneurship. In the next slide, we'll look at one of the areas where I see extension's future going. So several platforms have looked at the new knowledge, the new skills, and the new attitudes that extension needs today. And I'll focus just on the skills. I can share with you the link to these diagrams in the chat box later. But for today's challenges that we're facing in Africa and the rest of the world, we need new skills among extension staff. And our extension staff in Africa and the extension organizations in Africa, whether public, private, or civil society, are they equipped to deal with today's challenges using the available tools, governance, and management systems? We find that skills are lacking in many areas for those skills that you see around the circle: social communication, farmer group development, multi-channel communication fluency. Do our extension staff have these skills? Can they communicate effectively? Can they empower farmers? Can they teach about business and marketing and agripreneurship? These are all skills, knowledge, and attitudes that we need in extension staff in the future. In the next slide, I'll talk about the need for an upgrade in the future. So I think that extension staff and extension organizations in Africa will require an upgrade if we need to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. To do so, as Dr. Ramasamy mentioned, we need to invest in extension, in the governance, the management, the capacity, and the tools, the methods used. We need extension services that meet farmers' needs, that are farmer-led, go beyond information provision and beyond education of farmers to empowerment of small-scale farmers. We need extension services that are digitally enabled, providing smart information, right? Using smart tools, but at the same time, not leaving anybody out. Extension must be innovative. We have seen a lot of the innovations occurring as a result of COVID-19, but we need more agility, more entrepreneurialism among extension as an institution within Africa. And then extension services need to be more inclusive, be more aware of the different social groups and the different needs that social groups have. And then finally, professionalism, I think, is really going to be key to that quality performance. We looked at that middle box in the diagram: timeliness, efficiency, effectiveness, relevance. How can we get to that good performance of extension? I think professionalism is really key there, and it's going to be key to attract new people into the profession of extension and to retain people in public and private extension services. In the next slide, I'm going to talk about how we're going to upgrade extension. And I think this has already been mentioned by the two previous speakers. But okay, we need to upgrade extension. We need to change extension characteristics, but it's not just up to us as extension, right? There's this broader enabling environment. There's this broader policy environment that we're working in. We're not going to upgrade extension by just working on those characteristics. Governments, development partners need to support extension. Research actually shows that supporting ag extension makes agricultural interventions in general more effective, and we need to increase investment in agricultural extension and in agriculture in general. Governments and development partners can support implementation of policies and strategies. So there's many policies and strategies out there that that have this future look, that have this future vision of digitally enabled, pluralistic, inclusive types of extension services. But many of them are still sitting on the shelves. They're there on paper, but they're not implemented because we don't have the implementation framework. We don't have the financing available to implement extension services in the way that we want to see them. And this support is needed through investment, through budget allocations, and also through an enabling policy environment, which needs to happen not just at the national level, but also at regional and global levels. And it's only through these major concerted efforts like these that we can transform food systems and ensure global food security. So thanks very much. I'll turn it back to our moderator, and I really look forward to hearing from the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davis, for a very concise and informative presentation that included numbers of important elements affecting the performances and the effectiveness of agricultural extension services, and roles to be played by different actors to upgrade and transform current extension system. For those of you who have any questions, we encourage you to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Next, let me invite my colleague, Dr. Melo Loch, the Director of Strategic Partnership at SAA. He will be presenting delivering innovations through multidimensional agricultural extension system in Africa. Dr. Mel, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Sayako. And I wish to thank everyone for coming to this forum to be able to interact through this important event. And my topic is on delivering innovation through multidimensional agriculture extension in Africa. Could you have the next slide, please? At Sasakawa Africa Association, we are an extension organization very much involved in agriculture technology transfer. And our role and approach is to be able to bring in agriculture transformation in Africa, where we co-create, innovate, and support resilient building measures in this world of climate change. And we try our best to make it participatory so that we can increase smallholder farmers, food security, and income, while creating rural employment for the youths, which are some of the tangible goals which we put in all our interventions. What we do is very innovative. We get into all this inclusive decision-making in technology interventions based on proven extension models, which we have developed and validated, and some of them have been adopted by governments to be able to scale up these approaches. And the aim is to be able to bring in sustainable rural agriculture development at the grassroots level. Next. Now, if you look at some of the latest extension approaches going on, you know, approaching this from a holistic and participatory view is extremely important, where we develop solutions and get constant feedbacks. And we formulate all these solutions, we validate and apply them. We get into this need-based situation where we only promote what farmers need, what can address their particular needs, what can bring in significant change and impact in terms of income and rural livelihoods. So we engage in a lot of problem diagnostics, we search for solutions, we retrieve them, and we put them back into the system. And what happens, we link all these participatory approaches that is going on to resources so that farmers can have access to finance, they can have access to inputs and markets, they can have access to information which can help them make a difference in everything that they do. Next. We have developed what we call a virtuous cycle for our extension strategy, where we put regenerative agriculture at the center. And then we bring in solutions, integrated soil fertility management and conservation agriculture, so that we plug this into a sustainable intensification system. On the other hand, everything that we do is aimed at increasing profitability, to bring in income security, while at the same time bringing in the element of diversification with nutrient and crops to bring in nutrition security, so that we can increase the purchasing power of farmers towards these nutritious foods. And we promote quite a bit of biofortified crops and increasing food purchasing power. And you're going to hear a little bit more in one of the presentations from Harvest Plus about that. Our aim is to bring in sustainable productivity to enhance the value that farmers put in and the effort that they put in producing all these crops by improving and enriching the soil conditions so that we can increase productivity, generate surplus, which can be sold, which can be used for household needs to improve nutrition, and which can address many facets of household needs in a typical rural community. Next. We engage basically in agriculture-based community nutrition approach, where we aim to improve nutrition in entire communities by putting in nutrition-sensitive agriculture as one of the aspects of what we do, led by promotion of these biofortified and nutrient-dense crops, through market-oriented agriculture, but based on sustainable intensification through regenerative agriculture. So we can bring in the sustainable aspect into all these farming systems to ensure that we work in the long term, not in the short term, so that farmers can gain significantly from what we are doing. Next. At the same time, we look at nutrition in a different angle. Apart from promoting all these biofortified and nutrient-dense crops, we enhance the production and consumption through diet diversification. And one of our niche areas, post-harvest handling and agro-processing services to improve quality, and then incorporating the gender aspect into the nutrition awareness raising, so that we can have some kind of a push and pull approach which can help improve the adoption of a lot of these technologies. And one of our innovations actually in this post-harvest handling area, which I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. Next. Market-oriented agriculture is extremely important if you talk about the push and pull strategy as an innovation in agriculture extension. Our aim is to increase revenue from product aggregation and collective marketing through farmer cooperatives. We work with a lot of farmer cooperatives in Africa. We increase revenue from sales through smallholder horticulture empowerment promotion approach in partnership with JICA. We always work towards income generation by ensuring that everything we do with our farmers, we incorporate farming as a business enterprise through all kinds of techniques, contract farming, agro-processing, brokerage and input-output sales, and what have you. Next. Now, through all this that I mentioned, we have developed integrated extension models where we work across the entire value chain, looking at from inputs to consumption and addressing every single node of the value chain. So we have the private extension service provision, community saving for investments in agribusiness, which addresses the finance aspect, agro-processing enterprise center, which addresses post-harvest area, demand-driven curriculum, which addresses the education sector and training sector, farmer learning platforms, which of course address all our demonstrations, and community-based seed multiplication to ensure that farmers have access to seed, which is a basic unit for any farming enterprise. And in between, in this integrated extension models, we have a lot of other extension sub-models which we incorporate inside to be able to ensure that we address the entire value chain. Next. One of our approaches towards this is to consolidate all these field extension models by looking at the crops and ensuring that the field models are implemented either as single or consolidated to ensure that we have maximum output and maximum impact. at the grassroots level. Next. And the way we do this, we make it a need-based approach. So we carry out a need assessment. We only promote what the farmers need, which we identify together with them in a participatory way. Then we scale them out using all types of demonstrations through these farmer learning platforms, which already been validated and even published. Next. As a way forward, we use a scale-up model which is farmer-centered and extension agent-centered. We work with extension agents in Africa. We train community-based facilitators through these extension agents, and that is cascaded down by training to farmers. And then we all support the whole system through farmer-to-farmer training to ensure that all the technologies which are incorporated into this system reaches as many farmers as possible. So this cascade model is extremely important for our scaling up approaches, and is quite innovative to ensure that we reach as many farmers as possible. Next. We also engage in this human resource development, where we have a big program with 31 universities in Africa, where we train agriculture extension agents from the Ministry of Agriculture. And after training them to be able to earn a bachelor's degree, even master's and PhD in some cases, we work with them at the grassroots level to be able to scale out all these extension approaches and to be able to introduce all these agriculture technologies so that farmers can adopt them. Next. And towards that, we use this demand-driven curriculum model where we emphasize experiential learning and participatory curriculum development process. So everything that we introduce has some kind of participatory angle to ensure that we enhance chances of adoption. So all this is demand-driven and value chain oriented in the way we draft our curriculum and what we scale out. Next. In this area, we demonstrate post-harvest and agro-processing services to help improve quality. And we do this through extension agents who've been trained and directly using different platforms and different technology options in harvesting, handling, processing, storage, and value addition, as well as enterprise management in quite a number of countries where we work in Africa. Next, and we have integrated the youths through inclusivity, where we engage the youths, women, and people with disabilities. And we've created a private service provision model where we created a platform for them to create employment by engaging them in different enterprises where they make money as a private service provision at the rural level. Next. And towards the end, we've mainstreamed e-extension approach now. We are building an e-extension platform to be able to scale out agricultural operations in Africa. We started this when the COVID-19 came in and all these supply chain disruptions happened, and there were a lot of restrictions. Extension delivery was affected. And now we're using this approach in partnership with the private sector companies, research institutions, including CGI centers, to help scale up technologies through digital transformation to bridge the extension worker to farmer ratio so we can reach as many farmers as possible. Next, and that should be my last slide. So these scaling up technologies, we've applied it, or we're applying it to short, medium, and long-term solutions to facilitate technology transfer using ICT, strengthening the supply chain, using ICT to improve farmers' access to different services, and integrating youth into the whole sector so that we bring in the youth power of innovation. They're very innovative and always have solutions to a lot of challenges which are experienced in the field, and incorporating the university system where we have developed e-learning platforms in different agriculture universities in Africa where extension agents and even progressive farmers can access information as well as training the next generation of extension agents through these universities so that we can empower them with the latest information and technology that exists. Next. So I'll stop right there and thank you very much. This is our mantra. We work with the farmer. We work very closely with them at the grassroots level, and we ensure that everything that we scale up, everything that we introduce in their farming systems has their support and addresses their specific needs. That's what we do at Sasakawa Africa Association. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mel, for sharing with us this extensive overview of SAA program and the series of examples of how SAA bring technologies and innovations to smallholder farmers in Africa. At this juncture, we'd like to move to more practical experience sharing. Let me invite another colleague of mine, Dr. Gambo Abdul Hamid, who is the Interim Country Director, SAA Nigeria, who will be presenting on promotion of urea displacement technologies in face of current critical price increase of fertilizer. Dr. Gambo, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Sayako, and my dear participants, panelists, and listeners. Thank you very much and welcome to this webinar. We understand the global issues such as climate change, population exploration, malnutrition, hunger, COVID-19, conflict and wars are the major issues facing the world, as mentioned by the previous speakers, and also leading to a lot of humanitarian crises. We also know building African farmers resilience is one issue that we are facing right now, and also fertilizer shortages is again at the heart of the various food crises emerging around the world. This is motivated and encouraged by the Ukraine war crisis that is touching the whole world. Globally, the price of fertilizer now has jumped by over 80%, and also we have to look for a way to address this issue as a mitigation measure. For Sasaka Africa Association, like mentioned by Dr. Mel, it is about co-innovating technology, packaging, and disseminating to the farmers. So in this context, my presentation will focus on the practical experience as mentioned by Sayako, and that is mitigating fertilizer prices increase through the promotion of UDP, that is urea displacement technologies. This is an experience for Nigeria. Next slide, please. As you can see, the price of fertilizer in the case of Nigeria in the last 10 years, it had increased from 5,500 Naira in 2012 to 24,000 Naira in 2022. So you can see the increase in the last 10 years going by the graph is really very serious, and the kind of price is really going very high, and we need to have a measure to mitigate this problem. Otherwise, the food crisis will continue with us to the extent that farmers cannot afford to buy the fertilizer requested by the hectares of land for them to produce food and feed the population. And also, one of the adoption and mitigation measures for coping with fertilizer price increase heightened by the Russian and Ukraine crisis in the use of urea displacement as against broadcasting method. Sasakawa Nigeria promotes UDP through sourcing, knowledge sharing, and developing the skill of the farmers and extension personnel through innovative agricultural extension, which enable food, nutrition, and income security to smallholder farmers. Next slide, please. So the UDP technology was introduced by IFDC, and also it was introduced to improve nitrogen fertilization on irrigated rice. It involved placing urea briquette at a depth of 5 to 7 centimeters between 4 rice plants. This covers the nitrogen requirement of rice for the 4 hills throughout its own growing cycle. And you can see by the right side in the production cycle process how the urea is being granulated, and we have the USG. Next slide, please. So the principle behind the technology, SAA Nigeria promote the use of UDP, like I said, as a coping strategy for addressing the issue of our fertilizer crisis, for the fact that it reduces the rate of urea fertilizer applied per hectare by over 30%. And also that leads to the reduction of the cost. Of course, if you reduce the quantity of fertilizer application, then the cost of production, nitrogen effect, nitrogen fertilization, its availability across all stages of growth, because it's been deep into the soil, it's not been allowed to be taken away or washed away by the other environmental factors. And also it will lower environmental impact from pure nitrogen losses through nitrogen and farmer income. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the
Dr. Gamble,
by 20 centimeters.
Dr. Gamble, sorry for interruption, but the internet from your side seems a bit unstable. So could you please turn off your camera so that maybe we will hear you better? Great.
Okay, the ideal plant spacing is 20 by 20 centimeter. To captive transplanting is done completely in rows. The deep placement of briquette will take place. These are technologies that we teach farmers when it comes to application of the urea deep placement. Then also, if the plant spacing is not on 20 by 20 centimeter, that cannot be maintained, then deep placement of the briquette will take place between inter-rows in every 40 centimeter, and also keeping every other rows. Next slide, please. So you can see some of the success stories recorded through this technology. It decreased the cost of production, like I mentioned earlier. The use of the urea deep placement technology by the farmers can reduce production costs by 30 to 35% per hectare. These were evidence that we have generated from the state we operate of Jigawa, Gombe, and Kano state. It also increased in the number of tillers per hectare of rice. Using UDP, farmers record an average of 60 to 70 tillers per stand against the urea broadcast, which gives 30 tillers per stand on average. Also, it leads to increase in yield, increasing yield ranging from 50 to 60% using UDP compared to granular urea. Next slide, please. Then it increased adoption. Like I said, part of the initiative is for us to promote this technology and ensure that it goes to the farmer because of its own advantage in trying to address the problem of fertilizer shortages and also price hike. Then through this process, we were able to train 16,000 rice farmers under Kano State Agro-Pastoral Development Project, and also the using technology in maize and rice, with corresponding increase of 50 to 60% of yield. And again, there is promotion of UDP technologies to 275,500 farmers that were trained on UDP in the 12 states through training, demonstration, and field days. All these are efforts that we are making to make sure that farmers benefited and also address the problem associated with the fertilizer price hike. Next slide, please. Then this is one success story that we have recorded for a particular farmer, Alejisani Hotoro, on UDP technology in Kano. He mentioned that broadcasting method of applying fertilizer on their farm did not really protect them from wastages. Like I said, when you put it at the top and also broadcast it, it comes with a lot of issues whereby the water will come and wash it away, and also you lose the basic nutrients that are there in the fertilizer. And again, he mentioned after applying the fertilizer, most of it will be washed away by rain or blown by wind, even melt under the hot sun, leaving him with very little being taken by the crop. And he mentioned sometimes it gets bad that they have to apply, make the second application. That is another round of applying fertilizer, because that one they put earlier did not serve the purpose. And recently, the cost of fertilizer is really so high and is also not affordable for most of the farmers. So the UDP technology is an efficient means of cost reduction as well as yield increase as compensated by the farmer. Next slide, please. So one of the current efforts that Sasakawa is doing in promoting UDP technologies is currently SAA was able to introduce UDP planter, and the planter is made in China, costing 126 USD under the SAA KZ partnership, and plan are going on to train the local fabricator in the state to pioneer its mass production for sustainability purpose. Next slide, please. Next slide. Then other effort is a promotion of briquetting technologies. sourcing and detection of USG applicator, and also training and usage of USG applicator, then promotion of USG as a private extension service provision. These are some of the initiatives that we introduced where youth are trained and are taking charge of performing of this role for them to be paid some token as part of our means of earning income, and it's happening all over the state. About 290 youths were trained and they are carrying out this initiative. Next slide, please. Then other initiative is trying to have a partnership on fertilizer briquetting. SAA now is in talk with Royal Blue to work together on the promotion of USG. That's where super granules, Royal Blue also to produce the USG, and SAA to spread it's spearheaded its own dissemination across the states where we are operating. And again, Royal Blue, we are now trying to see the possibility of briquetting NPK for different crops. Next slide, please. Then in conclusion, we have seen from the experience in Nigeria, the UADP technology contributed to improve farmers' income, food security, and environmental conservation. It improved nitrogen efficiency, eliminating the volatility and wash away effect, and also mitigate the loss from blown away by the wind. And also it mitigate loss from melting under the hot sun, and also it eliminate the second round of application caused by running water and other environmental factors. It is again a cost effective in terms of quantity used compared to normal fertilizer, as it increases yield and you need very limited number. And like I said, the production, it reduced use of fertilizer by about 30%. Next slide. These are some of the pictorials and for the maize and rice production fields. And like I said, the technology started with irrigated rice, and today Sasakawa has promoted it to cover even maize production under different conditions and season. Thank you very much for listening. Next slide. Yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gambo, for sharing with us your experiences on the dissemination of these very practical technologies that maximize efficiency of urea in face of this fertilizer crisis, and the effort to ensure sustainable adoption of the technologies for smallholder farmers in this difficult time. Our next speaker is Dr. Takashi Togami, who is Deputy Director and eKakashi Business Director at SoftBank Corporation. Dr. Togami currently leads agricultural IoT solution business eKakashi as Business Director, utilizing his expertise in information engineering and agriculture. Dr. Togami, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Tokusue. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I am Takashi Togami from SoftBank Corp. I am very honored to be here, and thank you very much for giving me this precious opportunity to share with you about our activities. What I'll talk about today is digitalization of agricultural extension potential of eKakashi. eKakashi is our agricultural digital solution to support farmers making decisions. Okay. So as you know, there are so many issues we have been facing in agriculture, such as productivity, sustainability, human resource development, environmental load and climate change, and food security and safety is also a big issue right now. On the other hand, it is extremely hard to cope with the issues, to solve the issues by implementing the conventional method, which is based on experience and intuition. Therefore, new methods or tools contributing to solve the issues are strongly required. So our idea is applying advanced technology with science to contribute to solving issues. Therefore, we started agriculture Internet of Things project named eKakashi, and our vision is to drive the information revolution in agriculture while respecting our Mother Earth. Now, allow me to introduce eKakashi through my video. when we make a plan or implement agriculture Internet of Things project, I advocate this economic development model by the sustainable food production eco-cycle. As I mentioned, there are so many issues in agriculture, such as productivity, climate change, and environmental conservation and sustainability. Many projects using new technologies usually focuses on productivity, but if it gains short-term success due to the lack of environmental care, which leads to lower productivity for middle and long term, what do you think? So new technology can be introduced and used by researchers and staff assigned for the project, but within the project, if there is no activity to transfer the idea or theory of the tool, solution, and method, what do you think will happen after the project? That's why I thought up this model. Higher productivity with higher quality, stably, sustainably in terms of environmental conservation and sustainability in terms of human farming with the idea or the theory, we should tackle these three circles at the same time. When carrying out each activity, science or data-driven is the most important component, because it is a common trait satisfying the requirements of three circles. In other words, scientific approach to each circle is very effective and is the adhesive bond, and the agriculture IoT platform consisting of IoT, big data, AI, and CPS is the technical backbone behind. In terms of digitalization of agriculture and potentiality, another aspect I strongly believe important is education. To implement earth-friendly agriculture with high yield sustainably, education for younger generation is extremely important. Therefore, we have made educational projects for younger generations in cooperation with farm agriculture technical colleges in Japan. And what we have been providing are the opportunities to learn about agriculture issues, advanced technologies such as agriculture Internet of Things, and scientific-based and earth-friendly agriculture. In these projects, students have opportunities not only to use Internet of Things devices by themselves, but also to learn how to use data for cultivation supported by teachers and facilitators. Younger generations tend to live from agriculture, but through this educational program, it is expected that younger generation to remain in agriculture and return to agriculture. Some will return to agriculture in a different way, such as technological engineers bringing a new solution in agriculture. And this is one of the results from our project. By accumulating scientific evidences, it is possible to provide beneficial information as an alert system to farmers. This graph shows relationship between yields and accumulated daily temperature after heading to harvesting in rice cultivation. We can increase productivity by detecting optimal harvesting timing. Please look at the graph on the right. As you can see from the graph, the highest yield is at the accumulated temperature of 800 to 900 degrees Celsius, and after that, it decreases. Generally, it is caused by the decrease of water content in hard rice due to over-dry and by bird damage. However, setting 900 degrees Celsius as the threshold value, we can provide farmers with information as an alert to prevent delayed harvest. This is another success case of science-based agriculture, and target crop is potato. And previously, many people believed we could not do anything at the open field because if we had collected environmental data, since we cannot control climate and nature. However, it was actually not. Ikatashi can collect environmental data anyway if there is a mobile network, and once we know current condition of the field, there is still something we can do. And this case reflects the case very well. Right-hand side of the potato was a conventional method, which only relying on rainfall. Left-hand side of the potato was science-based, which they irrigated at the certain limitation of water in soil. The result was obvious and amazing. The yield was increased up to 1.6 times. And now, e-kakashi is being used in 10 countries, including Japan now, and the number will be increased. We are using same system, same way of thinking. I mean, science-based agriculture can be applied in any countries and any types of crops. Another agriculture issue I'd like to mention today is greenhouse gas emission from agriculture. Organic matter is in paddy soil is decomposed by anaerobes when anaerobic conditions. In that process, methane is emitted from the paddy field, and it is said that methane emission from paddy field is about 20% of the whole anthropogenic methane emission in the world. And this is one of our projects and the case of Ecuador. We have been working on this project towards reducing methane emission and optimal water management, as well as increasing in productivity. And it has been reported that multi-surface drainage increased 22% in rice yields and reduced about 35% of methane emission compared to always submerged cultivation in Vietnam. At the end of my presentation, I'd like to introduce our activities in Ethiopia through a video. Well, I'd like to keep our activities and contribute to make better world. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Togami, for sharing with us these innovative and exciting technologies and how it could support decision-making of smallholder farmers. Let me make one announcement about Q&A box function. We apologize that due to some technical setting issue we have, it may not be visible from your screen, but we are receiving all your questions, and those questions that has been responded by our speakers and now being shared through your chat box to all of you. So please keep eye on your chat box. As for those unanswered questions, we will try to have them answered during the Q&A session at the later part of the program. If we run out of time, then we will try our best to get responses from our speakers after the event, and we'll post them on our website, together with full record of the video and presentation materials. So please be patient with us. So the next speaker is Ms. Sakire Kudita, who is the country manager of Zimbabwe at Harvest Plus. She will share with us Harvest Plus experiences in promoting biofortified crops in Africa. Ms. Kudita, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are listening, where you're joining in from. My name is Sakile Kudita, and I'm joining you from Zimbabwe. Next slide. Okay, so we are, as you already heard from the previous speakers, in a partnership with Sasakawa. I'm coming from Harvest Plus, and we are promoting a nutrition-sensitive agricultural innovation known as biofortification. And for the sake of bringing everybody up to speed, in case some people may not understand what biofortification is, I'll explain it a little bit more before I get into the experiences. Okay, so biofortification is increasing the density of vitamins and minerals in the staple food crops that we normally eat, the maize, the pearl millets, And we do so through plant breeding or through agronomic practices. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, and so why biofortification? The reason why the technology became necessary is the realization that more than 2 billion people in the world suffer from hidden hunger. And this is a situation where people are eating and getting enough food into their stomachs, but then that food is not nourishing them enough. It is lacking essential vitamins and minerals that are needed to support growth and development. And the reason why we have this situation is because people are having non-diverse staple-based diets that are deficient in the essential micronutrients. So what biofortification therefore does is increasing the nutrient quality of those very foods, the least expensive foods that the majority of the populations can afford. Next slide. Okay, so we find that hidden hunger is a problem of public health importance because when people don't get enough micronutrients in their diet, and we find that this mainly affects, it affects everybody, but the women of childbearing age and children under the age of 5 years are most at risk. Some of the impacts of hidden hunger or micronutrient malnutrition include anemia, visual impairments, adverse pregnancy outcomes where children are born underweight or premature births, weakened immune system, especially in children where they fall sick and even lose their lives to common childhood ailments, impaired brain development, especially when children don't get enough iron when they are developing in their mother's womb or even within the first 2 years of life, as well as other things, including stunting. Next slide. Okay, so there are many strategies that have been employed by governments across the world to curb hidden hunger. We find that we have biofortification. If you look at the pyramid before us, biofortification is probably has the widest reach, which is the bottom of the pyramid in terms of wideness of the reach, followed by dietary diversity, post-harvest fortification, and supplementation. But then you find that also in terms of costs of these interventions, all of them are equally important. But you'll find that biofortification is probably the least expensive intervention because we are putting micronutrients into the very crops that are being grown. Next slide. Okay, so how then, the challenge is how then do we get people, smallholder farmers, especially the rural poor, to start growing and consuming the biofortified crops, especially if we consider the biofortified varieties like the vitamin A cassava, the vitamin A maize, and the vitamin A sweet potatoes. By their nature, these are biofortified with vitamin A. They are high in beta carotenes, which are normally consumed which when consumed are converted by the body into vitamin A. Now, provitamin A carotenoids tend to have a yellowy orange color. So all crops that are biofortified with vitamin A, it results in a color change. So this is this could be a challenge, especially where people are used to eating white maize or white cassava or white sweet potatoes, and now they have to start consuming yellowy colored. It's especially a problem, for example, when you look at biofortified maize, due to some historical biases in Southern Africa, for example, we find that people had experiences with yellow maize, probably less of a challenge with the non-colored biofortified varieties like the iron biofortified beans, iron pearl millet, zinc maize, zinc wheat, and the zinc rice. Next slide. Okay, so what then has extension done? What's the role of extension into promoting the adoption of these biofortified varieties, which are so essential for public health? We find that extension has to come in with farmer education, training farmers on nutrition education, and also training farmers on good agronomic practices for cultivating the biofortified crops and correcting some previous misconceptions. Some of the other misconceptions we may find is where people think that because it's yellow maize, then it's supposed to be for stock feed. And also we find that extension has a key role in terms of monitoring and evaluation to make sure that we are aware of to the extent to which the biofortified crops are being adopted by the community. And also when you look at the crops like orange sweet potato and the yellow cassava, which are vegetatively propagated and where farmers can exchange seed. Farmers extension also has a key role in terms of certification to make sure that whatever planting material farmers are exchanging between themselves is of high quality, disease-free material, and also of the pure and proper variety that it should be. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are many extension approaches therefore that have been used by Harvest Plus and all our partners in promoting the adoption of biofortified crops and breaking some of these adoption barriers. And these include approaches such as the farmer field schools, where the agronomic performance of the biofortified crops is demonstrated to the farmers, and also the good agricultural practices are demonstrated to them, or they learn and choose those that work for themselves. And also we find the lead farmer approach playing a key role where extension conducts training to lead farmers, and then the lead farmers train other farmers. This is what we would call the step down nutrition and agronomy training. And also the lead farmers are sometimes trained to be change agents or advocates for adopting good nutrition practices. We also find extension coming in to play a social marketing role where they lead extension roadshows, exhibition, field days, and the like. Of course, now with the advent of COVID, it became necessary that remote training is adopted. And so digital extension also became important, where extension had to use social media to reach out to farmers and communicate the key messages, and the use of community radios also became important. Next slide, please. Okay, so we find therefore that thanks to all these efforts, these biofortified varieties, which are so important for public health and increasing the micronutrient status of the population, were mostly introduced around 2012, and by now, which is 2021, we can see by looking at these graphs that there has been a sharp increase in the number of households that are growing biofortified crops across Africa. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kudita, for sharing this very important nutrition-sensitive innovation and the effort and challenges to promote its adoption to rural communities in Africa. The last speaker of this session is Mr. Godfrey Mayambala, who is the Center Manager of Zirobre Agari Awam Agribusiness Training Association, ZAPTA, in Uganda. He will present a success story of the One Stop Center Association as an example of the pluralistic agricultural extension. Mr. Mayambala, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Like she said, my name is Mayambala Godfrey. I come from Zirobre Agari Awam Agribusiness Training Association. It's commonly known as ZAPTA. ZAPTA is one of the one-stop centers that are being supported by Sasakawa in Uganda. And we quite do a number of things. Like here, a one-stop center. We support farmers across the whole agricultural value chain. We provide services right from inputs. We provide services through our farmer learning platforms. We support transportation. We provide marketing. So it's a real one-stop center that a farmer comes for knowledge and goes away with money. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, and ZAPTA, like I said, is a higher level farm organization based in Zirobre. It was started far back in 2004, and it works with 4,922 registered farmers. We are so much in upland rice, soybean, maize, and beans. And we work with over 20,000 farmers. That is our vision. Our mission is to be a center of excellence for farmers' agribusiness services in Uganda. And our core business is to aggregate, process, and market farmers' produce. Next slide. Yeah, I tried to give a snapshot of ZAPTA's performance or turnover from 2018, 2019, up 2021. Like you can see there, that is how far the one-stop center has gone. Next slide. To take you through our one-stop center model and how we operate is that the center is focused on both national and regional markets. And we do this through different approaches. Like as ZAPTA, we work with the production department. And in the production department, we have extension staff. We have both professional staff and the paraprofessionals, the ones that we call village agents who go and work with aggregation centers. But again, the middle, because we want to be on a going concern, we work with the youth through our Nokia Youth Agribusiness Platform. It is through this platform that we see that the village agents and the Nokia Youth provide input sales and PHH business support services to farmers. And now when the produce is ready, it goes through the marketing manager and the quality control department that moves it to the milling and packaging and branding department that now takes it back when it is ready to be taken either on local or export market. But in the end, we make sure that we see that we incorporate those two models, the Nokia Youth model and the village agent model, such that our products reach both national and export market. Next slide. Yeah, our approach to integrating youth in our agricultural value chains is simple. We make sure that we highlight the different opportunities along the agricultural value chain. Like on the node of input, we make sure that the youth access income through sale of inputs, and they also run nursery bed business where we sell ready to plant materials to farmers that are willing to be planting. And then those in the production node, we make sure that we provide skilled production and harvesting labor. This is done by the youth who go and provide production support services to farmers. They also provide the farm management services. They do scouting for provision of mechanization services. They also do tree planting and management through our afforestation department. And they also provide the production of high value crops. Most of them have been incorporated into the high value crops because we are near the towns. We make sure that they tap into the markets that are nearby as one of the ways of getting incomes in the high value crops. When you look at post-harvest, we help them to tap into the opportunities in produce aggregation and trading, provision of skilled post-harvest services. At the same time, they provide also transportation services. Then on the processing node, of course, they come and provide the processing labor. They also support us in making packaging materials and fabrication of value addition technologies. And on the trading node, we make sure that they go and provide marketing services where they earn commission on each of the output that goes to the market. Next slide. We realized that as an association, it was not easy to tap into the regional market that was opened up. And in the end, we ended up now joining Synergy and joined the other cooperatives under the network of producers and exporters of Uganda to tap into the regional market that was happening in the East African community and in SADC. And in the end, we are a member of that network that supplies grains to the Agro-Processors Association of Kenya, That is one of the contracts that we have as ZAPTA. And what we do here is we have a platform, it's a digital platform where the Kenyan buyers post their orders, and we also post what we can supply. For example, we would not be in position to supply all the tons that were needed by the Agro-Processors Association of Kenya. And at the end of the day, we ended up now also tapping into this opportunity. Like as ZAPTA, we put our trucks that we have, and then the rest of the other members within the network of producers and exporters of Uganda also tap into that. But the good part of this is we utilize the logistics within the region. We use return trucks that come from South Sudan that are going back to Kenya, and also the return trucks that are going back to the return trucks that come from Kenya that deliver goods in Uganda. They're the ones that we use to load the consignments that we deliver back to Kenya. Next slide. After realizing the bottlenecks with most cooperatives, and of course, this is what we had to do. We made sure that agribusiness trend and extension service delivery is happening. And on an annual basis, we make sure that at least we maintain 22 full-time staff, 10 casual workers, and 70 village agents that support us. And again, in grain production process and marketing, we have managed to put on the market produce that is worth over $840 US. Under seed and stock multiplication, we have sold close to 200 tons of seed. Then we have also established partnerships with national buyers, regional buyers, and financial institutions. We have advanced soft loans to our farmers for production through our commodity investment and treasury department to a tune of $90,000 US per annum. And on storage, we have 12 stores with a capacity of 2,000 metric tons at hand. And on sale of inputs, digitally, we have tried to see that at least we use the Easy Agri app that support us in managing our orders and deliveries. Next slide. Of course, we have managed this through achieving our public-private partnership. We have also focused on market penetration, also completing the value chains. The different value chains have also helped us to be progressing. And then engaging youth as commission agents at different nodes of the value chain has also been critical. Then developing youth-led business models and opportunities that cater for social behavior change has also been impactful. And then there's also a need to look at the succession plan, because we have survived for all that long just because we are engaging youth as one of our succession plans to see that the one-stop center is sustainable. And then promotion of reinvestment of dividends into productive assets that has reduced the burden of delivering inputs and other services. Next slide. Yeah, for those of you that have not come to ZAPTA, that is our administrative structure for network for Zilobagale Amagri Business Training Association. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayambala, for sharing with us a great and dynamic example of farmer-to-farmer extension involving numbers of young farmers in profitable business activities along the agricultural value chain. Now, in moving to the Q&A session, I would like to ask all the speakers to turn on your cameras. Thank you. And at this point, let me invite Dr. Mel to moderate the Q&A sessions. Over to you, Dr. Mel. Dr. Mel, yeah.
Thank you very much, Sayako. We've come to the end of our presentations, which are ideally really very insightful. There's a lot of information there, which has been presented, which is extremely useful in just getting a feel of the innovations that exist there, technologies, and how we can scale all this out. And we are really looking at how we can tap into all this and put it at the grassroots level so that farmers can utilize it. I have a question which I'll start with the first question for Dr. Togami, please. Looking at your good presentation on e-Kakashi and the potential of applications, of that application, where we can use it for varied purposes to help improve productivity. What do you think are the challenges of promoting adoption of digital technologies among rural communities? And do these rural communities trust data-driven decision-making tools rather than their experiences?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mel. Well, I think there are 3 aspects I can come up with for the challenges. And one is the connectivity. If there is no connectivity for our solution, there is no way to provide data and information. So this is a very crucial matter to consider. And second is the cost. So as you can imagine, if we invest overweight profit, it is very hard to adopt these technologies. So I assume the way of providing technologies and solution is very important and very challenging. And the last aspect is the accumulation of a lot of success cases. At the first time, people tend to think new technology like e-Kakashi is impractical proposition. To prove science-based agriculture is profitable and applicable to anywhere, we should make a lot of good success cases in various types of crops at many different areas. So I think these 3 are the challenges we have to get over. And to the question, well, do they believe these are actual data, right? Is that right, Dr. Mel? Is that a question?
Yeah, do they trust these data decision tools, to be able to make decisions which are data-driven, or do they prefer to use their own practical experiences at the field level?
Well, I think yes. But it's hard to say fully yes, but partially yes. I mean, even a skilled farmer is very, very worried if their decision is correct because of the climate changing every year. So that information with scientific evidence make them reassure and push their back very gently. So once a skilled farmer has success case with data, that data and information will be their best buddy. That's what I think.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Togami. We really look forward in ensuring that we adopt all these decision-making applications and tools to be able to engage in agriculture, which is science-driven, so that we can have tangible information which we can use to be able to address our productivity goals, so that we can increase productivity at the rural level. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I have a second question, which is addressed to Sakila Kudita from Harvest Plus. Sakila, fortified crops is extremely important. It's a future. And you've clearly shown how cost effective it is. And this may be the game changer. I wouldn't say may, but it is a game changer in addressing malnutrition at the rural level. But what do you think are the most innovative dissemination pathways in promoting these technologies to ensure that these biofortified crops are being utilized by rural households in Africa, Latin America, in Asia, and all over the world? And to what extent can these pathways help to improve adoption? Go ahead, Saki.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Mel, for that question. Yes, indeed. Well, the approaches are many, and many more will still come. But maybe one thing that I can say in terms of the dissemination pathways for biofortified crops is that we do need to take a multidimensional approach, which combines both commercial marketing approaches with social behavior change communication. And these approaches need to work together because we need to promote biofortified crops as a commercially viable option for farmers, and yet also talking about their social role in terms of increasing the micronutrient content. So those two need to work together. And when we promote biofortified crops, we find that especially for anything that is new and different from what farmers are used to, experiential marketing also becomes important. So we need to have approaches that allow farmers to experience the variety and be convinced of its benefit, and then later on also then switch over to digital technologies so that we achieve the kind of scale that we need, because biofortified varieties, for them to make an impact, they should be grown at scale. And for that to happen, then commercialization is important. Of course, maybe let me also mention that dissemination needs the cooperation of government. Government has to be committed to that at policy level, and at departmental level, the involvement of civil society as well, and the involvement of commercial enterprises. Thanks, and over.
Thank you very much for that short, crisp response, which is very clear, and we really appreciate that. Now I'll move to ask a question to Dr. Christine Davis. International Food Policy Research Institute is one of the key organizations around the world which is really helping generating agriculture policy to help improve or to help transform food systems, around the world. Now, pluralistic agriculture extension involves various sectors in different areas along the agriculture value chain. However, from your experience with institutional building, Africa and many other countries around the world, what kind of institutional arrangements and investments are needed, or which can be used to further accelerate pluralistic extension?
Thanks very much, Dr. Mel. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I think this is a big question that will take a lot of effort and actually a lot of investment. But as per, I think there was a conversation earlier in the Q&A about the institutional arrangements with regard to coordination. So I think we really need to invest in these coordination mechanisms. But the underlying, enabler that needs to happen is those policies. You say we're the International Food Policy Research Institute, so we need to invest in those policies that allow for pluralism, that create incentives for coordination, that assign specific roles to public sector, private sector, civil society, farmer organizations, and the different extension providers. But of course, we do need coordination platforms. We do need communication mechanisms. And of course, we need the capacities, the organizational capacities to be able to coordinate, to collaborate, to communicate, to partner, and to ally. And then probably related to this is further development of the policies into practice, right? So I had talked in the chat earlier about the need, or possibly even during my presentation, that we need to go beyond policies on paper, mechanisms on paper, to ones that actually work. And maybe it's time to stock take a little bit around the world and specifically within Africa to see what are some of the coordination mechanisms that we see. I know Ethiopia has some sort of coordination mechanism. I think in Kenya, there's something for extension and other people working in the agriculture space. So let's take stock of that and see, how can we strengthen it? Where do we need to invest? Is it in capacities? Is it in, operational funds, et cetera, and then go from there. Thanks.
Yeah, there's this mantra which is attributed to the late Dr. Norman Borlaug, the Nobel laureate, who was the president of Sasakawa Africa Association for a long time, that we don't eat policy. I'm sure you heard of that. How can we transform policy into concrete investments? I'm sure this involves getting in touch with governments to be able to ensure probably adopt all this Malabo Declaration with respect to Africa, for example, and I'm sure we have other tangible targets in Latin America, in Asia, and what have you. How best can we do that real quick?
Right. I think Dr. Borlaug's other mantra was take it to the farmer. And I say, let's take it to the farmer as our partner in lobbying. We need, as taxpayers, as stakeholders in agricultural systems in Africa, we need to hold our governments responsible to meet those goals and those needs. And we need to find ways that we can lobby, get our governments to do it, provide the right environment for development partners to also come in. In many cases, there's bilateral, multilateral aid coming in to support implementation of policies. And so we need to get that done. But I think we just need to really make a lot of noise and tell our governments that, this is really critical and it needs to happen. So more investment is certainly needed. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Christine. Very clear, very, very clear. I have another question that came over, and this is addressed to Godfrey Mayambala. ZAPTA is one-stop center is really, really famous in Uganda for the approach and tools that you're using to introduce private service provision at the rural level and to basically stem this rural-urban migration by ensuring that farmers engage in business, in farming as a business enterprise. Now, what multidimensional extension strategies can we use to empower the rural youth in these rural communities to be able to engage in innovative agriculture as a business enterprise? We all know that youths are the power of innovation. So what strategies can we use to empower them to be able to engage in all these innovative enterprises?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mer. The first thing that I think we have done as ZAPTA in partnership with AFAAS and SAA is to see that we enroll youth and bring them on board to expose them to opportunities along the agricultural value chain. When we talk about farming, most of the youth think it is going and touching the whole, but it's looking at the whole agricultural value chain. The youth can be employed in the different nodes of the agricultural value chain. But then the problem is that as strategies are being drafted, we don't focus on their social behavior change. Because me and you, we have ever passed through this youthful life. We need to know that this is a social behavior change, that it is a time between 18 years and 35 years that these ladies and gentlemen are passing through their social behavior change. So between 18 and 35 years, whether you want or not, the youth are focused on money now. They want money now in the pocket to go and bull around in the evening with their peers. So as we are designing strategies, as we are designing models of supporting youth, we need to put this in consideration. We need to come up with the programs that give them money now as they are passing through their social behavior change. And that is what we have done together with the AFAAS. I remember AFAAS supported us to set up that innovation platform called the Nokia Youth Agriculture Innovation Platform, together with Sasakawa, to make sure that we help them provide production support services that are private. And in the end, in the evening, they have the money now in the pocket and they can go and bull around with their peers. So as we are designing strategies, we need to focus on their social behavior change. For me, I think it will be a step ahead as we entice them to tap into other opportunities. Then the second thing, we also need to focus on their willingness to adopt to technology. Today, every youth is eager to use ICT. If we can look at strategies that bring them close to what they know better, which is ICT now. For me, I think if we use them through ICT, because once you look at the digital world, you cannot forget about the youth. So once we get approaches that are towards ICT, that are towards their social behavior change, for me, I think we can bring them on board and they be part of the agricultural value chain and, of course, definitely participate in the economic transformation of agriculture in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Godfrey, for that insightful comment, which is extremely clear. You know, I know you're running an award-winning enterprise approach, which is extremely important in empowering rural youth. And we really appreciate your presence here today. I have one last question for, I think with this will be addressed to Dr. Gambo. You have clearly shown us this very good presentation on urea displacement and how SA is trying to transform that to even include NPK, you know, to be able to produce more of these briquettes, which can be used for enhancing the productivity of rice, maize, and obviously, you know, other crops. There's always an element of cost factor in some of these, and I don't know how the cost compares, you know, when you buy urea, which is granulated to the normal urea, but how can we improve access to finance for youth entrepreneurs to be able to engage in validation research, for instance, in trying out all these UDPs, which involves rural agriculture innovations? You can limit your answer to urea displacement or other enterprises.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mel. And like I said, these technologies have been promoted for the purpose of farmers mitigating the cost and also addressing resilience. And again, we are promoting it as an entrepreneurship for the youth that are going into these urea displacements. You know, one of the key issues when it comes to youth of UDP, it has its own, the way you use the technology, the way you put the fertilizer, like in rice, we are going to say after every 4 stands, and in maize after every 2 stands, and you have to dig and bury and all that. So what we are doing is to really, under like case ADP project, we supported them with these simple planters that you have seen, which were imported from China. And we are now doing the scaling up program. We first of all provided as a starter pack for them to go into the business. And they are doing the business right now. They are getting very good returns. And we hope they can also be able to buy more and also bring in more other use into the business. That is one aspect. And secondly, like I said, our effort goes beyond just providing it as starter pack or support, but rather bringing in partners. I have given an example of how we are working together with Royal Blue in promoting not only briquetting the fertilizer, but also seeing how we can promote and scale up these particular planters. And also we are working with the fabricators that can be able to make them locally, but also to suit the purpose of why they are there. So youth are always encouraged and are always given training and are always being linked up to the financial institutions, both micro and commercial. And that has a lot of success were recorded along that area for them to be engaged into those kind of businesses. And even beyond the urea displacement technology, the planter, other planters for other crops that we are promoting, they are also being promoted and being funded, and also fabricators, we are working with them, and they are ready to fabricate more and to sell more, and we're linking them up, and even other banks, commercial banks, financial institutions are also coming in to really participate. And again, you remember, sir, the community saving investment for agribusiness. All these models that we are promoting, they are all meant for them to come together, gather their money together, and also support one another, having understanding, getting the knowledge, and they're all going into the business. A lot of successes were recorded on the part of the farmers. And even for the farmers themselves, now they have seen the advantage of using that kind of technology. Therefore, they are ever ready now and willing to buy. And we have so many requests for us to link them up with the source of this technology. And farmers are really willing and ready to patronize and also to engage into using those technologies. So I think it's a very good initiative, and it's making a lot of sense. It's really addressing the issues of food, income, and other securities that we are really working toward achieving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gambo. You know, we are now coming to an end, and we'll see how we can harness all these technologies which exist, all these decision-making tools, all these technologies, all these approaches that are really important, you know, that can implement it across the entire agriculture value chain to ensure we empower our farmers, improve their income, improve their livelihoods, and be able to help them to address all these resilience measures which are necessary to allow them to survive under the changing climatic conditions in the world today. And now I'll return, I'll conclude the question and answer session here and return the moderation back to you, Sayako. Thank you. And we wish to thank all our panelists, and we look forward to successful outcomes. Sayako.
Thank you so much for that lively session for Dr. Mel and all the speakers. Our dear speakers, you can now turn off your video except for our last speaker. So let us move to the very final part of the program, concluding remarks and the way forward by Dr. Salim Nardi, the Executive Director of the African Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, AFAAS. Dr. Nardi, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sakai. Yeah, well, first and foremost, let me thank the organizers of these meetings, series of meetings that we've been having, which has been extremely insightful and useful, and we have learned a lot from it. Just to recap, really, is what we have learned from this series of examples and presentations. As one, of course, we know the role of Sasakawa, which has been mentioned by Tanaka, the issue of their vision, some of the vision, especially as laid out by Bolog, and examples that have been presented by him, a few of them. And of course, it presents some challenges which are very current indeed, issues of climate change and so on. And again, there's been presentation by Christine and Ramasani, which really shows some generic issues in extension. And specifically, when you look at FAO, they have had very rich experiences and some very good examples as well, which were presented. Christine specifically looked at the current, the past issues, the current issues, and some of the challenges, and presented very good way forward in terms of making extension more innovative, but also current in solving some of the current challenges, including climate change, including COVID issues that has passed, and including issues of soil fertility and so on, And specifically, she very eloquently presented the challenges which I mean some of the innovations that can emanate some of these challenges, including basically embracing innovations, including digital innovations, inclusivity, professionalization, and so on, but also looking at it not only from national levels or even geographic level, but looking at it more contextually from global, from regional, and from continental levels, which can basically impact on issues of learning, innovations, scaling up, and so on. And as she mentioned professionalization, which has not been very well embraced, especially in Africa. And I think that's an area where AFAAS now is pushing up, especially with support from GFRAS and other networks globally. She also brought in the issue of issues of partnerships, and I think this is an area where we think Sasakawa can really catalyze the issue of partnerships, whereby we all play the game together for the common good. But also not only that, for learning purposes, for scaling up, and for improving innovations and use of technologies. Now, after that, of course, there have been very good examples, especially relating to specific issues. First of all, from Watch, where they mentioned many other examples which Sasakawa has done, which are extremely has been very impactful in many other places, including post-harvest issues, digitalization, and so on, youth inclusion, women inclusion, and so on. All these are extremely very, very important. And of course, I know they have been working on scaling up, like you mentioned, the use of ICTs and so on, which are all very important. But like Christine mentioned, and also mentioned during the context, I mean, during setting up the context, is the issue of partnership and scaling up and so on. So that is the wide application and learning. Of course, there's been very good examples from Nigeria, from Gambo, and especially on the issues, very specific on issue of fertilizer usage. And we know it, fertilizer, for example, he mentioned the fertilizer price increase from 205 to current by about 5 times increase in prices, which is completely unaffordable. So options have to be developed, and I think they gave a very good option that can be adaptable and scaled up. And again, this should not only be probably like all the presenters mentioned, we need the issue of scaling up and how can we learn from it, and what kind of partnership do we build. And again, we are all here, FAO, AFAAS, IFPRI, and so on. And these are some of the platforms that can be very useful. Digital solutions, very exciting presentation by Togami, which these are the areas where we have to go into, and these are exciting areas which can bring up, capturing data, using data, information, and so on, and using science-driven, science-based information, and so on. And this is the area again you have to penetrate, and a lot of other areas which can come in. I think finally there was that presentation again by Harvest Plus, which on the use of fortification. And again, of course, I've seen it happening in a number of countries. This was I've seen it in Uganda by Harvest Plus and so on. But again, the same issue comes: how do we scale it? How do we learn from it? How do we implement it in other places and so on? And how do we work together through partnerships and so on? So again, consistently the issue of partnership comes in, and consistently the issue of ICT usage. I think there was a mention of extension workers. There are very few countries now employing extra extension workers, and you don't see it happening really. And the use of digital tools now is very important. the use of innovations, innovativeness is extremely key. And I think Christine presented the issue of skills development in extension, which is very critical. And I think this is an area we have really to focus on. So I think with this, which are extremely very, very, very useful presentation, and some of the areas that we can take up have been presented and captured extremely well. So with those, really, I thank all the presenters, and really, I think the continuation of these presentations and this dialogue really, I think, is called for, and deeper partnerships, I think, is needed, especially during present implementation. But not only that, but even during design and so on and so forth. So really, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best and good partnerships. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Nardi, for the great summary of the event and your insights on how we move forward as a global community for transforming agricultural extension system. Now, we'd like to invite all the speakers to show their faces on the screen, turning on the video to take a group photo. Is everybody here? Great. So everybody, Dr. Mel, yes, you're here. So let's smile, please. Thank you. Okay, I think we are good. Yep. So due to time limitations, we have not been able to respond to some of the questions posed during the event by the audience. But as I said, we will try to answer them as much as possible after the event and putting them on SAA's website together with a full record video of this event in a few weeks. So finally, I convey our sincere appreciation to all the speakers for participating in this event and on contributing your precious experiences and insights. We also sincerely appreciate all the audiences who joined us till the end. Thank you so much. We wish you a very pleasant morning, afternoon, and the evening. Thank you.